Hello and welcome to Talk from Superheroes. Hey everybody, I'm Andrew Ivemy.
And I'm Diana McCullum.
And you're listening to Talk from Superheroes, where every week we discuss a piece of heroic television or film. And this week on the podcast, we are talking about the first 3 episodes of The Winchesters.
Ooh, also happy Halloween if you're listening today on Halloween when this comes out.
Ah, yes, classic spooky season. Spooks and scares.
Welcome to our Spooks and Scares episode of Talk from Superheroes. Also laughs. Spooks and scares and laughs.
Spooks and scares. And laughs and spooks and then back to scares and one more laughs.
It's in threes, you see.
It's
comedy and horror.
That's how they do it. That's how they do it. So, we got some monsters and some spooks and scares on the Winchesters. We're talking about the first 3 episodes of the new show today on the podcast. And as our regular listeners will know, whenever we talk about a new TV show or film, we are going to give you a spoiler-free review. So off the top, we are going to give you a spoiler-free review about whether or not it's worth your time, whether or not if you're on the fence about checking it out. And then once you hear the theme song, that is going to be when we get into the spoiler-filled section. Mm-hmm. So,
that's how it works.
That's how it works. Our regular listeners know it. Diana, let's start with the spoiler-free review. The simple question: do you like it?
I don't particularly like it. I don't hate it, and I think there are redeeming qualities. I think we have to, for a little background, in case you guys just listen to this blind, The Winchesters is a prequel to the very popular CW show Supernatural. As a primer. Supernatural, which I'm a huge fan of. So I watched all 15 seasons several times. So I loved Supernatural. This show is not Supernatural. It doesn't really work. The cast doesn't click. The storyline's not working. It seems like it has less money than Supernatural did 16 years ago somehow, which I'm like, come on, I know inflation, but what's going on? What's happening here? There are a few performances that are trying to save it, but overall I'm not compelled. I'm not interested in the story. I'm not interested in the characters. It's not really grabbing me as part of the Supernatural mythos. I think the only reason I would keep watching is to be like, none of this makes sense with the Supernatural mythos. How are you going to explain this? And I'll just read a Wikipedia on that later. I'm probably not going to keep watching The Winchesters despite my love of Supernatural, the OG show. So yeah, it's kind of boring. It doesn't really work, I would say, is my quick spoiler-free review. Andrew, do you like The Winchesters?
I'm nothing on it.
Yeah.
I think I'm fine. I fine it.
It's fair.
I think it's very flat. I don't think that there's anything that's like, there's a few things we'll probably like dunk on or have a joke about during this episode. But I don't think there's any like huge messes, but also I don't think anything really works. It's just kind of flat. It's there. It is just around. And also I don't, it's not for me. It's definitely trying to skew to a younger demographic, but it does feel somewhere in between a traditional CW show where it's like we want to cater towards kind of a younger teen drama audience, but it also is kind of flat like a major network CBS procedural where it's like we're also trying to sell this to people who are in hospital waiting rooms. Like we want it to be very bland. Like we've stirred all the bubbles out of this soda to make sure it doesn't hurt your tongue. Like real flat pop of a show. So yeah, like there's some good stuff, there's some bad stuff, but for the most part, I just kind of find it generally like white noise fine.
I will totally agree with that. And I really like your analysis of like that it's bland and the reasons why, because the CW, this show, they painted themselves into such a corner because the CW is generally for teens. It's like the young kids show. But this is a prequel to a show that's been on for 15 years. By way of math, the viewers are at least in their 30s.
Yeah.
The viewers who are interested in this as a prequel to Supernatural. So like they're not teens, the average viewer of this, but you have to assume they are at the same time. So you really have to, they're really trying to skew to both audiences, and I'm guessing hitting neither one.
I kind of feel the same. Yeah. Watching this, I'm like, it is moving at a pace and filmed in a style where I'm like, you are catering towards a 35 and up CBS demographic, but for some reason it stars teens having teen problems. So it's kind of the worst of both worlds. in that regard. I don't think anything about this is going to bring in new viewers. Like, I don't think anyone who is like a teen today who's like, I've never seen Supernatural, but I'm going to go in for the Winch. I don't think that happens. And I also don't think that people who spent 15 years watching Supernatural are going to be super into this. I think it'll be like, they'll get some, but not all. So
I mean, I think I can speak for those of us who watched 15 seasons of Supernatural and say we're not all in on the Winchesters.
Sure.
Yeah. So, yeah, a little disappointing. I was actually quite stoked for this.
Really?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was like, maybe they can find the magic again. Like,
Right.
Supernatural has tried to spin off 4 times.
Okay.
This is the first one that actually got a pilot.
That moved. Okay. And I will say, as much as like I don't have the intention of continuing with this show, I think where I'm at, where it just kind of feels like a little flat and a little bland, I'm not saying that I see hopes of this, but I do think it's something that can be turned around, because it's not so off the mark that I'm like, whoa, get this trash off TV. It is really the type of thing where it's like, oh, we pivoted a little bit. We changed this character. We changed the filming style a bit. Maybe we brought a new actor in. Like, there's it's enough fine material that you could tweak and work it until it becomes something special. So, if a year from now someone was like, the Winchester season 2 is something special, that's believable. It's not something I expect, but it's something that I think could be done with this show, because right now it's just kind of like a wet lump of clay where I'm like, yeah, you could be anything.
I could actually totally get behind that, because I would say the strongest part of the show is the 2 leads, who pretty much can't be changed because they are the title Winchesters. Yeah. So they'll be there no matter what. So if they can figure out how to work around these 2 actors who are actually doing a pretty good job, then it could be fun.
I do agree they work. Yeah. And can it be spoiled before we get into a spoiler section?
So far, no. I haven't heard anything that would spoil Supernatural or this show. Can't think of anything.
Yeah,
Not 3 episodes in.
I agree. 3 episodes in, I don't think it can be spoiled. It's a Monster of the Week show. In episode 1, there's a monster. In episode 2, there's a monster. In episode 3, there's a monster. And the monster hunters hunt them in all 3 episodes. It's some boilerplate stuff. Nothing too complicated. Nothing too spoilery here.
Yeah. So just watch the Winchesters if you feel like it, but maybe don't.
Yeah, maybe don't. If you were hard into Supernatural, maybe there's a 50% chance it's worth it. If you never watched Supernatural, and I will speak for those listeners because I've never watched Supernatural. I've seen scenes. I know of it. But I didn't watch Supernatural, and watching this, I'm like, oh, this is just this is nothing to me. This is water on a duck's back. It doesn't mean anything.
But you get to be a duck.
But you get to be a duck, and that's fun.
That's fun.
That's fun. And that is, before we get into the spoiler-filled section of the episode, we want to remind you that if you're listening to this the week it comes out, this coming weekend, November 5th, us at the From Superheroes Network, we're going to be participating in Extra Life Game Day, which is a 24-hour virtual charity event. So November 5th, starting at noon Eastern Time, we are going to be streaming live on Twitch with 24 hours of different programming. We're going to have live podcast tapings from every podcast on the network. So that's us, I Hate It But I Love It, The Villain Was Right, The Fandom Show. We are going to be doing a watch-along party for Lord of the Rings Return of the King.
Yay.
We're going to be having a Jackbox Party Games Night. And then there's also going to be 12 hours of video game streaming and playing and hanging around with me as well.
And prizes.
And prizes. We have prizes that are being offered by some wonderful sponsors and friends. Thank you to our friends over at TeePublic, teepublic.com. They are providing free product, so you have a chance to win product from teepublic.com. Our friends over at Manscaped, manscaped.com. They have some great bundles that they are providing as prizes for this. And Brook Linen as well. Thank you to Brook Linen, who are going to be providing sheet sets as prizes, brooklinen.com. Every $20 donation, you get entered for a chance to win one of those prizes, and that is fantastic. So every $20, you get 1 entry. So $40 gets you 2 entries, and so on and so forth. At the $50 donation level, you also get the bonus of you will get every past Patreon exclusive episode of every podcast on this network. So that's us, I Hate It But I Love It, The Villain Was Right. It's 225 previously exclusive episodes.
Woo!
ton of content for a $50 donation. For a $100 donation, you can choose a game to be played for a 1-hour time slot. So you can get 1 hour of whatever game that you would like played on the stream. There is a list available that is on the website. But all of this information, the schedule, the details, everything, you can find it all over at extralife.fromsuperheroes.com. That is extralife.fromsuperheroes.com. When you go to that link, you'll see the schedule, you'll see the prizes, you'll see all of the relevant information that you need, and it will also have a link to our Twitch channel. Hit follow there, and then you'll get notified the second that we go live on November 5th. We look forward to seeing you all there. Thank you to everyone who's already donated, by the way. It's been so many of you. It's been overwhelming. We really appreciate it.
Thank you to everyone who's donated. We're going to have a lot of fun for a really good cause and a lot of exclusives. You guys, we've never done live podcast tapings online. So it'll be a first for everyone and a really good time. So check us out on November 5th, please.
It's going to be huge. So we will see you then. In the meantime, let's now get into the spoiler-filled section of the episode. Let's talk about the first three episodes of The Winchesters. All right, so we have seen the first 3 episodes of The Winchesters. We're now in spoiler territory, though like we mentioned, I don't think there's a lot to spoil here.
I got nothing I can even say that's a spoiler. I guess maybe because I went in blind, I am very surprised that John, right off the bat, has been told about demons, because that was a huge plot point in Supernatural that he didn't know anything about them. So that is, I think, maybe a spoiler right off the top. As a Supernatural fan, I'm like, what is happening? Why is he being told about demons? I thought this was like a hijinks show where she fought demons and he didn't, and that's what I thought the show was going to be, and I'm like, that sounds kind of fun.
I would have preferred to watch that show.
Like if Buffy had a husband who didn't know she was a vampire slayer.
Fun premise.
I think it would have been really fun, and that's not what the show is at all.
No, because John straight up knows. As a non-Supernatural fan, that wasn't a spoiler because this was all kind of nothing. It's just a bunch of people doing things. But it was interesting for you to fill me in on that. And I'm like, okay, I guess he's either lying for the entirety of Supernatural or more likely there is some kind of magical spell or curse that makes him forget these aspects of his life at some point before the end of the Winchester series.
There definitely will be, but that's just crazy to think that he's going to have his mind altered from the day he met Mary onward.
Yeah, especially when it seems like a lot of their relationship is going to be built upon the foundation of hunting monsters together.
Yeah, like what do they think they did?
Yeah.
It's going to be wild. I can't wait for them to explain this. Or they're going to be like, this has been an alternate Earth the whole time. This isn't even your John and Mary. I don't know. The last season of Supernatural established alternate Earths, so...
Oh, did it?
Yeah,
okay.
so
all right.
maybe. I don't know.
This is all messed up then.
It's all messed up. There's 15 seasons of farts to go through.
There's a lot to go on. I will say, though, the main two, Mary and John, I think are doing the best job of the show, just to kind of start positive. I think that they're doing a pretty good job of carrying it. I think that there's definitely like some writing issues, but performance-wise, I think they're fun. I think they're both badass. I think they're both charming. I buy their flirtation as well. The will they, won't they, meet cute of it all. I'm like, you two sell it, and I'm actually kind of rooting for you, and this works. So I think that they're doing a lot of heavy lifting here. Yeah,
it is wild that like they did get the most important element right. So it does give the show a little bit of faith, because these two are definitely the best part of the show. I think Meg Donnelly is pretty good as Mary. Like she's like tough and like you can like not emotionally available like on purpose. I will say I think Drake Rogers John is really, really crushing it. I think he's like leaps ahead of everybody else. I think he's very naturalistic. I think he's very funny, but he's very like tough. He really, really feels particularly like Sam Winchester's dad, Jared Padalecki. Like great casting director. Like this guy feels like and looks and acts similarly that I'm like, oh, wow, this is their dad. Holy shit, casting director, you nailed it. And also this guy's just abilities are very good. So yeah, right off the top, these two are very good, which is great because they're the ones who have to stick around.
Yeah, I agree. They're good. They stick around. I've watched very little Supernatural, but I am like, yeah, you sell this. You feel like a Winchester. Like the vibes are right.
He does get the vibes. He gives me vibes that he watched all of Supernatural.
Yeah.
I'm like, you watched it. I can feel that in you. I don't know if anyone else in this cast watched, definitely not 15 seasons of it. They might have watched an episode or two, but I'm like, feel like you get it. Like you're trying to do the emotional resonance that Supernatural had. You're trying to do the storytelling that Supernatural has. Yeah, you're working hard, Drake.
And one thing that is funny, I don't know if the actor Drake who plays John, I don't know if he's 7 foot tall or if everyone else in the cast is 5 feet tall, but the height disparity is so funny in all of the scenes. Just shout out and bless you to the cinematographers and camera operators who have to frame some of these shots, because the height disparity is huge between some of these actors.
It is huge. And also shout out to the cinematographer that I don't really notice most of the time. I actually think the first time I really, really noticed was when they introduced his ex-girlfriend in episode 3. And I think she must be even shorter than the girl playing Mary, because like he had to bend over to hug this woman.
He had to do a lunge. Like he was down on one knee proposing to look her eye to eye. So that was a pretty wild move.
Yeah, to the point where I'm like, this might be the only time I approve of ladies like doing fights in heels, because like the height disparity is just too much. Like we got to get some platforms on this girl playing Mary. Get her up there.
Yeah, because at first I was like, oh, Mary's a little short. That's fine. And then you're right, when the ex showed up, where I was like, oh no, John's a big boy. Whoa.
John's a tree.
Oh, this dude's fucking huge. I don't know why I find that so noteworthy and charming, but I do. And they do a good job of framing it and working around height disparity, which I know is a dumb, superficial thing to bring up, but it's a dumb, superficial thing that you have to consider when you are looking at camera placement, framing, and a lot of different small things with television and film.
But I also think it's part of his performance that he's coming off as so like gentle and like non-intimidating despite how big he is. But then when it gets to a fight scene, you're like, oh no, he can kill a demon. Like,
yeah, I believe it.
He's huge.
He's huge.
But the demons like don't look small in comparison. But yeah, every other cast member is just like so tiny compared to this guy. His height is not listed online, but
right.
It should be.
Yeah, I mean, he sells it as even though I feel like other than like the quiet contemplative aspect of him, the potential PTSD, I don't think they're really playing into the ex-Marine of him in a way that I'm like, I feel like that should be a like, you're a great physical hunter, and more like of the conversation seems to be like, your dad was a hunter and it's in your gut. It's your gut instincts. And I'm like, it has nothing to do with the fact that he is a trained fighter in any regard. Like, so in episode 1, they play into the fact that he's ex-military, but from an emotional aspect. And then they've just kind of faded away from that. It seems like his main trauma is his missing father, which we can explore a bit more. But I'm like, I would like them to explore ex-Vietnam veteran a little bit more.
Yeah, it felt like they were going to in the pilot, but then it really felt like the pilot only brought it up to explain why he had a silver cross in his arm, not to be any kind of like an emotional trigger or plot point, or like this is where he's going this season, working out his feelings about Nam or being a soldier or anything. It was just like, no, he's got a silver cross in his arm because his friend blew up in Nam, and he's fine with it now.
And we're not going to bring up that friend again later. That's not actually a permanently recurring emotional trauma that he has to deal with in any way.
Mary pulled out an EMF reader and proved there was no ghost, and he was over it.
That was the last it gets brought up that he was even fighting in the war or lost a friend.
If an actual ghost hunter tells you you're not being haunted by a ghost, you're over your traumas.
You're over that. That's all any Vietnam vet ever needed, was a ghost hunter to tell them it's fine, and then you're good.
And I will say I was disappointed because I thought it was really cool when they said he had a silver cross in his arm. And I was very disappointed that he just pulled it out in episode 1 to like lightly stab a giant monster with this tiny little cross. Because I'm like, oh, that's going to be like a permanent superpower of yours. You've got like silver blood, so vampires can't bite you. And like anything that's like opposed to silver won't be able to attack you. That's really, really cool. I thought it was going to be like a permanent thing that he has that's always helpful. And he was just like, oh no, I could have taken this out of my arm at any time. The doctors just said no.
No, they were fine with me getting slowly poisoned with metal in my body. Like, I really thought it was going to be like it's lodged in there, and in the same way that like you had mentioned, and I know that like in Supernatural they have like ward tattoos on, where it's like he's not tattooed, but he's got a silver cross embedded in his bone, and then he'll do like a cool like forearm block thing or whatever, and that's how he stops attacks.
Especially when it's a cross, which also like takes out vampires. It takes out anything with like that's like the Catholic background to it. The crosses attack, and it's just like it's gone now.
Yeah, and they just kind of threw that whole plot point away. And I think that kind of brings me to like missed opportunities and foolish choices is one of the bigger writing problems here, where it's just like that's one where it's like you set up and we're watching the pilot episode and I'm like, what a great setup for the series. And you burn it and it's gone and you burned it in that episode.
And you can't put the cross back in the arm.
No, and it wasn't even that satisfying in the moment of that episode. It actually felt kind of silly and dumb. So I'm like, you wasted it, and this was a wasted opportunity. And then also, it's the fact that like his main trauma then for the next 2 episodes and seemingly for the series is his missing father, which is also Mary's trauma. And that is such a wasted opportunity to be like, our 2 meet cute lead characters have the same trauma. And I could see why on paper at a glance that might seem like a good idea to be like, well, they'll bond over their mutual problem and trauma of a missing father figure. But it just means that they're always saying the same exposition and problems back to one another, and it's quite boring and bland. Whereas if she was dealing with a missing father and he was dealing with being a veteran of the Vietnam War, those would be 2 different traumas that they could still bond over and find commonalities. But instead, they just gave them the exact same thing, which is just a waste. It's inefficient storytelling, and it's just kind of bland and boring.
It is bland and boring, and it's also just so repetitive. Like both of our fathers were demon hunters. They didn't work together. They've gone missing separately.
In separate incidences.
We are not looking for our fathers who worked together and were friends or anything.
We're not trying to solve the same mystery.
No, we are trying to solve 2 different demon hunting missing fathers from the same town who do not seem to be connected in any way because one's been missing for 15 years and one's been missing for like 4 weeks.
We are both the lead character of the same
Different
show.
shows.
The different show that is the same show.
And I kind of maybe get why they wanted to do this, because season 1 of Supernatural is about Sam and Dean trying to find their dad. That's the whole first season. I'm like, oh, okay, so you wanted this season of this show to be trying to find your dad, but your 2 leads have 2 dads. So you had to pick one dad. That is going to be, like, the John's dad should just be dead.
I agree.
Because he keeps acting like he's definitely dead now, but I'm like, he's not. And he should just be dead. You should have found his body. He should be dead. And we're just looking for Mary's dad.
Absolutely.
And you're a war veteran who's all messed up.
Yeah.
A war veteran who is, can I tell you how old John is supposed to be?
How old is he supposed to be?
He's supposed to be 18 years old.
Oh, he ain't that. He ain't that.
Because there was this crazy line in the opening where the mom was like, you enlisted, you lied about your age, and you were too young to enlist.
I did catch that line, and I was like, oh, okay, sure, whatever. Yeah.
And then I checked the years, because we know how old John is like in later Supernatural years.
Oh, okay.
So I'm like, how are these years matching up? Which is why I checked the year in the pilot. He's 18 years old right now. This 7-foot-tall giant is an 18-year-old man who's been to war and come back.
Yeah.
Drake's age is not listed online. He's not 18, you guys.
Yeah. This is a 30-year-old man playing a 23-year-old, but who is apparently supposed to be 18.
18? When did you propose to Betty?
Right.
Were you 15 years old?
It was a different time.
I guess.
No, but it wasn't that different.
It wasn't 15 years old.
No.
The kid in episode 3 is 12, the brother.
Right.
In 3 years, that kid's going to propose
so
to somebody?
that kid's popping the question any day now, and we all know it.
John is 6 years older than that kid.
That's too funny. That's too funny.
The ages don't match up, they've decided to go with, is what I'm getting at.
Gotcha.
For the years. I mean, they're definitely not drawing too much attention to it. They're just like, you're young.
Yeah, you're young-ish.
But I'm a nerd who had to know specifically, and I'm like, he's 18 according to the lore.
Gotcha.
I don't know how old Mary is. I didn't check. But she looks like she could be younger than him, so I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I'm fine.
But
I'm fine
he ain't
with that.
18.
No, he ain't 18.
Been to war. He's come back. Also, you know what this means? if he's 18 years old, his dad left when he was 4.
Mm-hmm.
That's hardly any memories of your dad.
Yeah. I'm not saying it isn't a trauma, but I'm saying that the more recent watching your friend explode is a bigger trauma.
I would be much more traumatized by the dude who exploded next to me than the dad who's been gone since I could barely form memory.
Yeah. So there's a little there's some missed opportunities and messed up trauma in this as well. And I also too just think that like I know that like it might be too dark or a terrible place to go, but like if you're going to make him a vet coming home in this era and everyone treats him with love and respect, which is not at all what happened to soldiers from the Vietnam War, especially for this group of friends who are all like flowery, kind of hippie clothing, music loving. Like when Carlos is like, my biggest problem with you as a soldier is that shirt's a little stiff. And I'm like, okay, that is not at all the era way that these people would react with one another.
Episode 2 was set mostly at a commune. No one ever mentioned that he was a Vietnam soldier. He was never like, maybe I shouldn't go to the commune. They're not going to like me. And like, you know, they're going undercover, but still it's two very differing opinions of the world clashing together. Did not clash in any way.
A hippie commune of people who would be like those baby killers. Like he would be being openly called baby killer to his face.
He is the monster that is being hunted in that episode. If they find out who he is.
There's definitely some trauma-based and anti-war stuff that they could really dig into here that they don't necessarily have to go as dark as like Umbrella Academy or something like that would with it. But there's more richness to a lot of aspects they could explore here that they're not really going for.
Yeah, if they don't want to explore it, don't do any of the flashback footage.
Yeah.
Just be like, he's a guy with military training and that's why he can fight demons.
Yeah, that's it.
Don't even bring it up.
Don't worry about where he was or what he did. His friend definitely didn't explode in front of him. He's an ex-military guy. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, he can hit things with bats. He knows how to use guns. He's very, very good. But yeah, it's weird flexes.
Yeah, weird flexes. And also too, I think with the double up of the father stuff, I can't have every third word of the script be dad. It's just so monotonous and repetitive that I've actually found myself a few times getting dad blindness, where like I just kind of go cross-eyed like I'm looking at a 3D painting, you know, where it's just like it is Mary being like, well, when my dad went missing, he was working on the mystery of the Claude Mondieu, and then John being like, and my dad with the and then my dad, and then I just start hearing trumpet sounds, and every third word is just dad, dad, and I'm going like cross-eyed and confused, and I'm like, okay, they're missing. I don't care. I can't hear the word dad anymore.
It is too much, especially because off mic, we were actually just trying to discuss a plot point, and like you got confused because I think I said like his dad and you like heard her dad, and it's like there's two dads and there's two different storylines about them, and we haven't met either one to be able to differentiate either of these men to be like the cool dad or the nerd dad, because the men of letters are like the nerds of demon hunting, and then like Mary's dad is like the rogue kind of cool demon hunter, but we haven't met either of them to like have any feeling towards them or like have any picture in our mind even. So like when they say dad, I'm picturing the same person.
Yeah. And then I think the sentence you said to me off mic was you were like, when the dad was underground.
I said the dad, you're right, yes.
And I was like, what? And I was like, you mean underground in the place where all of the magic dads hang out? And you were like, no, the other dad with the tomb underground. And I'm like, okay, each... the other magic dad and the other magic underground. I'm like, oh, okay.
I like the implication that everyone in the Men of Letters was a dad, and it was just a big dad club, and they were all just avoiding their children.
At this point, it really does seem like it is just, the show could just be called Magic Dad, and it's just about people looking for magic dads and or becoming magic dads. And that's the whole show.
I guess that's what John's going to become. So yeah,
John will become a magic dad.
John is a future magic dad waiting to happen.
Yeah. And I would say the other big problem that I think we have with the show is, or that I have with the show anyway, is the supporting cast.
The supporting cast is pretty miserable. Although Ada's starting to get a few more things to do, and I think she's pretty good.
I think Ada actually does have the strength to pick it up a little bit.
Yeah, she's given the least to do so far, but she's like powerful and cool, and they actually gave her like a neat storyline with the demon in the tree. I'm like, this is the most supernatural this show has actually felt, because like doing cool things with the lore like that is very supernatural. So when she put the demon in the tree, I'm like, I've never seen that in 15 seasons. That's cool as hell.
And so it was cool, and she performed it cool and was playing it badass. Yeah, I think Latika and Carlos are just kind of flat, and the writing doesn't quite know, and the performers don't quite know, and it just doesn't really work. And one thing that I said to you while we were watching it is I was just kind of getting frustrated. I'm like, who's the fun one? Because no one's fun.
I mean, it's clearly supposed to be Carlos.
I think it is, but even then, the writing is not giving him full fun. I do think that the performance is off, and Carlos is not leaning into the fun. But I do also think the writing is fucking up Carlos as a character as well, because there are moments with the writing where it's like, Carlos is the one who loves music. Carlos can't get enough music. And then at one point, Carlos is sent on a mission with Ada, and Carlos is in the car and is just like, am I going to have to just listen to music all day? Every time Carlos is like, I like thing X, it cuts to Carlos experiencing thing X, and Carlos is like, this is the worst. I'm like, well, what do you like? What do you like?
You would
Are
think,
you the fun one or not?
You would think you would want to listen to music all day. See, I actually kind of feel like I'm a little bit different on this. I think the actor is trying to be the fun one, and the lines aren't actually all that fun. But he's been told he's the fun one. So he's like, okay, so I just kind of have to Matt Berry it and say words a little weird sometimes, because there's no jokes on the page that are really working.
Right.
So like I feel like that's kind of more of the vibe I'm getting, but I do see what you're meaning about like they just don't know what to do with him. Like the music thing is wild, because like I'm a solo performer, like in a band by myself. Like I'm a solo performer, and you pointed out that he picked up his guitar and literally played one chord, and also could not sing in episode 2. I'm like, did you not hire someone who could sing?
The main character trait of this person has the line, I'm a one-man band. I can do it all.
I have a guitar.
And cannot sing or play guitar. And I'm not saying, as an actor, Jojo, who plays Carlos, I'm not saying Jojo has to know how to sing or play guitar. That's not something every actor needs to do. But if you're casting that main character trait, that's something you have to do. And also, it makes it seem like Carlos doesn't enjoy the things that they're supposed to. Because that line of like, John's like, well, let me hear you play guitar. Spring. Anyway, I hated that. Let's go. This is boring and dumb. I'm like, but your line a minute ago was how the other thing's boring and dumb because you want to be playing guitar. And now you're playing guitar and this is boring and dumb. And so why is everything miserable to you?
And also, music is so important to, I think, all CW shows, and Supernatural in particular, because like there's always like musical montages, like very classic rock music is always playing over like fight scenes, or like when we reveal things, but like that's always been CW style. Like you get like Lighthouse in a Smallville episode. You got you got the classic like 2000s teeny boppers during Smallville and all that stuff. Like it's tried and tested. So if you have a character whose main thing is loving music, and also a performer of it, not just a listener of music. Because Dean liked music too, but he never performed it. He just loved music to listen to. But if you got a guy who's a performer of it, and like in episode 2, they had to cut to the actual song he was singing because it was bad.
It was
and
bad
I was
karaoke.
very relieved. So it's like you could have had a character who really like was the segue of music,
and also
into the scenes,
or you could have just written Carlos as someone who's not into music, because that's the other option too. That actually, there was a moment where I'm like, oh, JoJo's playing this character as fun, pure fun, and it was when Carlos is singing poorly.
Yeah, that's when they were having the most fun.
If the background wasn't I'm a one-man band, when Carlos is just like, oh, we're gonna go infiltrate a cult, and starts singing Age of Aquarius poorly. And I think that was the song, but it's just like, this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius. And I'm like, you sound terrible, but you're visibly having so much fun and the room is lighting up. And then they cut the audio to play the full song because he can't sing. But now I'm like, or because they can't sing. And I'm like, but now we don't have the fun character anymore. And we don't have the character who can sing. So what do we have?
What do we have? We don't have anything. And what we also have is, I hate to harp on two characters in a row, but we also have a character doing a very bad fake accent.
Ooh. The British accent from it's Latika, I believe, is the character's name.
I think they say Latka in the episode.
Latka.
It's kind of always a little mumbled.
It is always a little mumbled, but either way, this character, the British accent, does not work.
We checked an interview. This is not her real accent.
Mm-hmm. And it's very I don't know, it's very Oscar Isaacs in Moon Knight. It's a British that doesn't really exist, and it's over enunciated.
Yeah, it feels like a children's show character.
Yeah,
like a properly child, like for 7-year-olds.
An animated show, this is a character that Peppa Pig would meet, where it's like, let's gather around to read books, children.
I've got all the books about flowers.
Look over here. Wow, a beautiful flower. And it's like, what are we doing? This isn't you. And also, we don't need this character to have a British accent.
There's absolutely no call for it.
There is no reason.
You seem to have been in America for quite a while.
Yeah. Yeah. Much as the human actor, you seem to be someone who should have an American accent.
And I can only think about the future, because Supernatural and this show are for teens, and there's eventually they get to be sexy, and the character's supposed to do sexy things, and I just can't picture your sexy scene when you finally get a love interest, when you're gonna be flirting with that accent. It's gonna be miserable.
And that's the other problem too, is that as a performer, she's clearly having a tough time displaying range in that accent. And it's getting dropped when she has to. A couple of moments of excitement where it's just like, oh, yay, we're going to go to the bookstore today. And I'm like, oh, you couldn't be happy and maintain that accent at the same time. And it's just one of those things when they're like, just don't then. Just don't have that accent for this character. So just some wild choices for this show. A singer who can't sing, and an English accent that doesn't need to be had, and just extraneous, unnecessary decisions. Yeah.
Yeah. I will say also, God, I wish I had more positives. I don't have a lot to dip into positive-wise on this show, even though it is actually fine, as we said in the spoiler-free section. But just to I'm just trying to structurally figure out why it's not as good as Supernatural when it clearly has all the hallmarks of Supernatural. And I think some problems that I'm coming across are, original Supernatural was literally just two characters, and you knew they weren't going to die. So they made you really care about all the victims every episode. They would spend lots of time with the victims, or the parents of the victims, so you cared about the people who'd been killed. It felt like every episode really had stakes.
Yeah, because it would be a monster of the week, but it would also be a guest star of the week. It would also give an actor a little bit of room to be like, I'm coming in. If you were cast as the victim or someone, you got a little bit of meat on the bones of that character for that week.
Yeah, there was always stuff to do. And the first two episodes really fell off on that. Episode 3 wasn't so bad. We cared a little bit about those kids. And also those kids were badass, I will say, actor-wise and writing-wise. Just ripping the bunny apart. The brother wanting to be in the monster club. Those actually were really cool kids. So maybe it's a little too early to say they're not going to find the connection with the victims, which is kind of what the show hinges on. But I think having 6 main characters makes it harder than it did on original Supernatural, which is we have to connect with the victims in order for there to be stakes, in order for there to be people to save that you care about. But also original Supernatural focused a lot more on the villains because the 2 main guys needed some scenes off. They needed to have scenes they were not in so that they could go get some sleep. So there would be a lot more focus on who the villain is, what the villain's doing on his off time. And they hired really campy, great actors for these iconic villains that they had. And we've only just met the villain in this one, and she only had a line on her own. So there's no one we're worried about fighting. There's nothing we're worried about fighting against. We're not oh, she's so cool, I can't wait for her to come back. It's just these CG skittering monsters. And other villains have been so cool. Meg is incredible. Yellow-Eyed Demon. Oh my God, Lucifer. just out of the park cool villains. And so this show didn't focus on the villains or the victims. They're only focusing on the cast members, which is not how Monster of the Week really plays into your heartstrings.
I can see that, and also just not something that the timing allows either, to be like
When you have 6 main characters.
Yeah, it's like, paint by numbers, paint within the lines of the format of Supernatural, but now we've added 5 new main characters who need to be here every week and who we're giving a big paycheck to. And it's like, okay, that actually fucks with the rhythm and timing of everything. So yeah, just even pacing and timing wise, let alone emotion wise, it's not as strong. And also just in terms of it feels like they tried to make 2 characters 6 characters, which is why everyone feels a little flat as well, where it's like, with the little that I know about Supernatural, it's like you got Sam, Dean, and Cass is the other one, right?
But eventually Cass. He doesn't come till season 4.
Fair enough, but we've got versions of kind of like, kind of like grumpy, tough, gravelly. There's a little bit of like a couple bickering type of an energy, which adds fun and charm, but you can't give that to 6 people. Everyone here feels kind of grumbly and bickering, and it just feels like 6 people who don't fucking like one another.
It does feel like no one is friends with each other.
2 people who bicker, it's like, oh, you're stuck here because you're brothers, or you have to do this, and it's charming that you have to be in this situation together, and there's a familiarity to that. But this truly feels like 6 miserable people who have nothing in common, who do not like one another, because they're all written like Sam and Dean. It's 6 Sams and Deans. And that does not work for an ensemble. You've got to go to Buffy, to Legends of Tomorrow. You've got to go to ensembles where it's like everyone is an archetype. And this is all just repetitions of Sam and Dean on slight variations.
Or you at least have to have some characters who are established as already, like, together. Because when we meet Mary, she's working on her own. And she certainly knows Carlos and Latka. But, like, Latka works at the library. She's never gone on a hunt before this, it seems. Carlos is off on his own currently and doesn't seem to have been around for weeks. So it's not like you've established like a group of hunters who are constantly moving and working together before they meet John. Before they meet John, it seems like none of them worked together constantly. They didn't even know Ada.
Yeah.
They meet Ada in episode 1. So like you didn't even like introduce John to a set group, because even in Legends, it was like Captain Cold and Heatwave were already best friends.
Yeah, and
so
then that adds a fun dynamic of like when everyone's an idiot, 2 people in the background get to be quippy to one another about how everyone other than them is an idiot.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah.
And you're right. No one really feels like they like each other all that much. And they are kind of just stuck in their circumstances. And that's not a fun situation to watch.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, maybe John and Mary feel like they like each other, but everyone else is just kind of like, go do some research and like, don't bother me. You, Carlos, like you're annoying and I don't want to work with you. And I'm like, you guys are being really mean to everybody.
Yeah.
You're just all mean to each other unless you need something.
Because like for Carlos has never worked with Ada, but then to be like, do this assignment with Ada and be like, oh, fuck, Ada again? Be like, what do you mean? You just met this person.
Yeah, but he knows Ada's not a main character. He's like, I want to be with the lead.
But
she's not a Winchester.
But I complain about everything. Like,
he does complain about everything.
What are we doing? Yeah, they all complain about everything. They are all the same character.
Yeah.
And it works for the lead 2, who are genetically and emotionally the people who are representing Sam and Dean, and it doesn't work for everyone else in the show. So yeah, just everyone's the same character, and I just need a little bit more variety there. And what you're saying of like people should know each other or have a backstory, I think, for better or worse, when we talked about it last week with Black Adam, and no real spoilers here for Black Adam, but when they have the Justice Society, it's just like, we know each other, we used to work together. You're the new one, you're kind of new, now you're meeting the new one. And it's like, we as an audience weren't caught up to that, but it was like, here are 4 different dynamics that allows us to interact in different and interesting ways. Mm-hmm. And it might not be validating, but it is at least a quick hit of here's defined character relationships. And that's what more of this group needed, to be like, I'm A, you're B. B is only related to C. C has this relationship with D, and that's how we all do this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's just not quite working. And I find that really surprising that there's so many misses on this show, because it is like executive produced, narrated by Jensen Ackles, who knows Supernatural better than anyone in the world. Like, I know he's not the showrunner. Like, I don't know what the executive producer does in comparison, but I assume he's had some huge inputs into what the show will be if he's narrating and if he's that involved. And I'm just like, how did you not know what made Supernatural work?
He's not a writer. I don't know what to tell you.
I don't know. All he does is analyze it, though. Like, when you consider how many panels these guys do about Supernatural, how often they have to talk about the show and think about the story structures, like, even if you're not a writer, I feel like from all the 15 years of interactions with fans, you must have latched on to what people liked about it.
I agree, but then to make it different, younger, and an ensemble is not something necessarily you'll understand. And if one of the problems of this show is that it's all supernatural all the time for all of the characters with not enough differentiation, then maybe that is the problem. You know, like it's
everyone is supernatural.
Everyone is supernatural, and instead it should be like even if Jensen Ackles understands supernatural inside and out. If someone was like, and what makes Legends of Tomorrow work? That's not necessarily something he understands to be like, okay, well, here's the archetype of the bitch or the bastard versus the sexual one. Okay, here's what we need to do in a group dynamic. That's just not necessarily something he's going to know, even if he understands the heart and soul of Supernatural.
That's a good point, because like there is like, you know, they are doing the classic, like, there's one major villain and every small creature is caused by the major villain. And that's standard structure for Supernatural and a lot of other shows too. But yeah, maybe you've got a good point. He wouldn't be aware of how to change the dynamic. As I said, there have been 3 failed pilots before this one that did not get picked up for series, which is wild. Supernatural is oddly hard for such a successful show. It is oddly hard to continue off of it.
Yeah.
So there have been huge failures before as well of people who couldn't figure it out. So seems to be the uncrackable nut.
Yeah, it's and you know, who knows? Maybe they will crack it because, like I said, like
we're early.
We're early, and they can easily repilot. They can soft repilot. They can easily be like, you know what, Carlos is less grumpy. We're gonna change the direction we give this actor. We want it to be fun. We're gonna ease the throttle off the music thing. Boom, fix. Like there's so many like little things where it's just you can learn as you go and really make adjustments because this is still like a raw, wet lump of clay. This can be molded into something. I'm not seeing the seeds of them doing it, but I think it can be done.
Well, we'll see. Maybe I'll like keep poking my head in about like how the episodes are doing, like just like numbers wise of like ratings and people enjoyment.
We'll keep our ear to the streets.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm willing to go all in for 15 seasons of the original show, I can give them a little bit more of my time. I've invested a lot.
Interesting. All right. Well, I think we're feeling good on the Winchesters, or at least for the first 3 episodes of it. We'll keep our ear to the streets and see what happens down the road. In the meantime, let's go in for the close. Let's ask our final question of what would you change? So now that we've discussed everything we discussed, what would you change about this show if you could change anything? But before we do ask that final question, we'll remind you, as we do every week, our wonderful, kind listeners, please do a free thing to help us out, which is to take a moment and subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Podcast Addict, wherever you might be listening to this right now.
Wherever you are listening to this, somehow, you can subscribe and probably leave a review, and we absolutely love that. It helps us so much. Our hearts get filled. Other people who check out the podcast are like, other people who aren't the hosts think the show's good. I'm like, that's always nice. We like that.
We like it when other people like us, other than just us.
You listener, very important.
Because I've also realized us liking ourselves, unreliable sometimes, frankly.
But very mentally healthy.
Ooh,
I think we're in a good place.
I see what you're saying.
Mentally about it.
We're doing very well. So leave a review. It's a free way to support the podcast. So do that when you have a moment. And if you want to support the podcast monetarily, that's where you can head over to our Patreon page, which is a monthly subscription service. You can subscribe at whatever is in your budget, and you'll get different levels of cool bonuses for doing so. Even at the $1 level, you help support this. You help support the show. You help support the network, and you get our webcomic a day early. You get early releases. So you're going to get something at every level. At the $10 a month hero level, you get a bonus episode of this podcast every single month. This month, because it was Spooky Scary Month, we did the original Hocus Pocus.
Spooks and scares.
Spooks and scares.
And we had a lot of fun.
That was a
it's
blast.
It's full of spooks and scares and fun.
It was a blasty blast. So that is available right now over on the Patreon page. And as well, you can, when you subscribe, you can cancel or change your level in any given month if your financial situation changes. You can also sign up for a year, in which case you get 1 month for free. So there's plenty of different options according to what your preference, comfort, and financial level is. And no matter what you do or what you support us at, even if it's the $1 level one time and then you cancel, we still appreciate your support. All those really add up, and frankly, over the years is the main reason that we've been able to keep this network together and do everything we do. So if it's in the budget, go check it out over at patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. That's patreon.com/fromsuperheroes. And let's go in for the close. Let's ask the final question of what would you change? Diana, what would you change?
What would I change about the Winchesters? I think my change is going to be the cast is smaller in a way. Everyone stays, but not everyone is in every episode. This is really going to be it's going to be Mary and John's dads are both missing. They both went missing together. They work together. This is ridiculous that they're separate demon hunters hunting separate things. Absolutely silly. So they went missing at the same time. They don't know each other, and they've just met, and they're working together to find their dads. But they're going to be going on like adventures other places, and sometimes we run into Carlos, and sometimes we run into Ada, and sometimes we run into Laka, and we don't necessarily have everyone, and it's not really an ensemble. I'm going more original Supernatural of there's two main characters, and sometimes we need the other characters to do things. And I think it's just a little bit more streamlined. I really want that connection to the victims. I really want that cool villain. But I don't think we don't need a supporting cast. I just think you don't need to shoehorn them into every episode because it doesn't feel like they fit. So yeah, we're going after our two dads. They're probably somewhere together fighting Akrita. And we're just going to have the rest of the cast rotating in instead of being in every single episode. It's kind of more my vibes. So those are my biggest changes overall. Maybe make it a little bit scarier. The show used to be scarier. It used to be just darker and like way bloodier and actually kind of scary. And I haven't felt a lot of scary vibes.
Spooks and scares.
Spooks and scares. They haven't even really killed anyone. They didn't kill those kids. They didn't kill anyone at the commune. They've saved pretty much everyone that was possessed by a demon. Like, you're supposed to
I think
kill
they got
people.
one at the commune.
No, that kid lived.
Really?
Yeah, the other guy lived.
Well, there was two people trapped, and remember, John saved one, and then while the other one was being murdered as a distraction.
I think he didn't get fully murdered. I think he was just knocked out. I'm pretty sure.
Okay, well,
but
whatever.
But either way, not a lot of deaths, even if that guy died. So you gotta kill some people off.
Gotcha. All right, so scarier, kill people off, and then it was
the dads are missing together.
The dads. I love the dads are missing together.
The dads have to be missing. They're on some kind of romping adventure. Or maybe one of them's a mom. I don't like this focus on too many dads. Although your mom and dad, your separate mom and dad can't date because then you can't get married. Well, you wouldn't be related.
They
anyway.
wouldn't have to date. They could still just be coworkers.
Just be coworkers.
They could just be people who do the same thing.
Anyway, lots of little changes. What about you, Andrew? What would you change?
I like where your head's at. I think I agree with all of those changes. One for me that this isn't even going to be a major one. I don't know if this fixes a lot, but it's just a detail that I think I would enjoy. So I think I'm going to give a soft, I would enjoy this change, which is the villain we were just introduced to at the end of episode 3. We are introduced to as a local pirate radio DJ who's also been collecting the souls of all the air quote souls, whatever they are, of all the demons that have been killed. And I don't know why we haven't been introduced to this DJ as that earlier. Because Carlos has one line in the van who's like, when Carlos is listening to music and it's just a moment of silence and goes, "Oh, I love this cool new pirate DJ," but there's no talk on the radio. There's no anything.
Yeah.
I kind of want a Reservoir Dogs, that's the built-in soundtrack of the show.
Of course.
Because the show, much like Supernatural, is hedging on these pop culture musical moments. And instead, we've got a singer who can't sing queuing in Age of Aquarius. And instead, why don't we have this pirate radio DJ who's using songs to send signals to demons to attack? And the lead character who loves music, doesn't play it, but loves music, loves listening to this DJ, and doesn't realize that this is going to be the threaded villain for the rest of the season. I think that introduces the villain earlier. It introduces this aspect of why we're using the song and musical cues that we add, and it kind of threads this villain through their lives better than I've got a weird little spider thing that grabs your souls, and instead makes it I am a cool character with a voice who is engaged in the journey of our lead characters and also engaged with the audience through music. That's what I think. I think every musical cue should be engaged by this villain if this villain is going to be a pirate radio DJ.
I love that. That is such a great way to integrate the villain, because that was one of my wishes, was that the villain played a bigger part in the show, even when they're not interacting directly with the heroes. And what a great way to put them in the show. They're in the van. You can cut to them anytime you want. They're maybe even narrating what's happening in a offbeat way.
Yeah.
And this one's for all the souls out there who just can't find their kids. I don't know it would be more on the nose than that.
Yeah. Some of us feel a lot of the times something feels lost in our lives, and this goes out to or whatever.
This is for anyone who's in the bag right now.
Because
something like that.
Yeah, because sometimes Jensen Ackles VOs don't really do a great job of paralleling thematically. It is just sometimes his opening VO in the third one is just there's no playbook. And I'm like, that works for, you could say that at the beginning of every fucking episode, other than an episode that was literally about them finding a playbook. It works, it's permanently useful, but we could have this radio DJ do a little bit more cute wink and nudge. And it also then adds a little more fun and charm to the show as well. And it adds what you were saying, the supernatural thing of a fun villain that gives a big, larger-than-life performance that adds a lot of life and vivacity to kind of grumbly, stoic, this shit again characters.
I love that. I think that's a wonderful change. It is small, but it changes a lot. It really ups the dynamic throughout the show.
Changes the vibes.
The vibes are important.
I like it.
I also really like it.
Well, I think we did it.
I think that's it for the Winchesters.
That is it for the Winchesters. We will be back next week. Next week on the podcast, we are going to be talking about Creed.
Yeah.
We are gearing up for the release of Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, and we're going to be doing another Ryan Coogler movie. So celebrating the director Ryan Coogler, we're going to be talking about Creed next week on the podcast.
Should be a fun time.
I'm looking forward to it.
You love a punch.
I love a punchy
Loves
movie.
a boxing punch. You got the Stallones and you got the boy.
I love a good punch.
It's gonna be fun.
It's gonna be fun. So we will be back next week talking about that. In the meantime, if you want to get a hold of us, you can find me online, Twitter and Instagram. I am at Ivimey, Ivimey.
You can reach me at Words of Diana.
And you can reach both of us at From Superheroes, and we'll talk to y'all next week.
Bye.